Hi, okay, I'm gonna make another video. Somebody just came up and asked me about when my son was young and how did he do in school and, what's the process. I would say, there's things that I wish I would have known years before I knew them. It's like you go around and around and each time you always say, gee, if I just wish I would have known that. Or if I would have known that, I would have done it different. So I would say when they get into school, you start really noticing if there's problems, without a doubt. They become like a class clown. They're always interrupting. They're considered the bad kid. Their desk is beyond messy. They can't focus. They're all over the place. They don't want anybody to know that they're not okay. They don't even understand what's wrong with them. They just can't. Like with my son with ADHD, if somebody sneezes, he looks over to where somebody sneezes, and if somebody drops a pencil and then the teacher's talking, so he's constantly all over the place and he can't focus on just one thing. So in order to not look like he's stupid, he kind of would disrupt the classroom or make jokes or class clown, or his desk was beyond messy. It was just unreal. His backpack, his notebooks, he just couldn't keep together. Then they started having problems. One thing too is the food. The food does matter too. Too much sugar, too much red dye, too much blue dye. The more dyes, the more it can react, especially if there's mental problems because of the chemicals in their brain and the chemicals that are in the food colorings. So it does actually make a difference. Now for my son with ADHD, I would take him when he was in high school, I would take him to Starbucks and get him a really strong caffeinated coffee, and it actually reverses, so it kind of makes him a little more mellow, so it made it a little bit easier for him. But when he was in the first and second grade, they were constantly calling me to IEP meetings, constantly saying how terrible he was, how he couldn't do anything, he couldn't read, he couldn't write. I mean, it was just like, wow, and it's hard not feeling attacked, and you don't know what to do. I have two daughters I didn't have these problems with, and now I have a son that has these problems. So, early on I knew that one of Shiloh's problems was neurofibromatosis, which has to do with the brain. So I knew we were going to have problems, I think from the age of 2 on, we were told. So, but when you get into school, and the teachers are coming on you and the principal and, it just, So anyways, I took him to the doctors, and we were getting diagnosed now with ADHD and bipolar and sensory disorder, And I go into the school IEP meeting and we're trying to discuss it, and they're just brutal. They're just absolutely brutal. Like, it's my fault for one, two, my kid. So what I ended up finding out was there's a thing called a child advocate. And a child advocate comes in for you, and they're there for the rights of you and your child. So they know what the school budget is. They know what schools can do to help your child. They know the different classes for your child, and they know what's really best. And they go in with you on your behalf. And it's amazing because everything you didn't know, you start to know. So for my son, he needed to go into a class called the II program. It's the intensive intervention class. And it's for kids like him, ADHD, bipolar, Tourette's, that kind of a thing. So he's not mentally retarded, so he wouldn't fit there. He's not blind, he can't make it in resource classes, so this is kind of perfect. So from, elementary school, you have the same classroom, the same teacher the whole way through elementary. And then middle school, you will have the same teacher all through middle school. And then high school, there's one class per district. They will go in with you to the meetings. The learning will be different. If you have sensory problems, they'll have a sensory teacher come in. The classroom has about 7 kids in it. There's the teacher, there's like an assistant, there's like a psychologist, there's a timeout room. And when my son went there, he couldn't spell the or and or homework. Wow, that was a nightmare. When we took him over to the II program, of course, he had to change schools. Nice thing is they do add busing door to door, which is really amazing. So he started there, and within 2 months, he could read Harry Potter books. That's huge from not even being able to read and or the. So the advocate is just amazing. She she just knows her stuff, and the school can't pull anything over on you, because they will, because they don't want to get into their budget. But Shiloh did very, very well. I also started counseling for him. We did different counseling over and over. We did counseling where you have the psychiatrists and counselors that were book smart and went to college and did everything, but they have no experience. They have no experience what it's like to be a parent or a child with a diagnosis. So it was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay at different ones. We did Loma Linda, we did Kaiser, we did all kinds, because he's 22 now. But what I ended up finding out was there's counseling you can get for your kids. And like where I went, the only way you could have a job there is you had to have a diagnosis, or you had to have lived with somebody that has a diagnosis. So the nice thing about them is they're so compassionate and understanding, and they get it. They get what you're going through. They get how to teach the classes, because you want to jump in on parenting classes as much as you can. You will learn how your child processes, how they think, how psychology doesn't even play a factor with these kids whatsoever. And you learn key words so you can communicate and talk to them right. And you're all on the same page, the advocate, the school, the parenting, and everybody stays, in the same guidelines on what to do, what not to do, food, the key words. It all comes together. With the parenting classes, I was kind of upset a couple times because I thought, I did really well with 2 kids, but Shiloh was just not the same. He just was different. And when I learned how he processed, and I learned how when I think I'm saying the right thing, it's actually telling him the opposite. So that was kind of interesting. Plus, it's like you stop the madness. When you finally understand your child, everything at home is better. Everything runs smoother because you understand this child. This child understands what you're saying too. So it's a win-win all the way down the line. I just feel like the advocate is just one of the best things that you can do. And like I said, the counseling. We went into counseling and joined the family groups, the anxiety classes, just on and on and on. And then also, this is kind of a touchy subject, but this is just what it is, and it is what it is. A lot of kids, if they have bipolar, ADHD, they have a lot of mental problems, whether it's from an illness or abuse or, whatever. There's a chemical imbalance. And when they get older, if they're not taken care of right, and they don't get on the right psych meds, and you don't want to start psych meds too soon, but then, it's really hard on their organs, and the older they get, the more they need. It's just, but a lot of them will self-medicate with street drugs. So then you have a whole new problem on your hands. So I would say, if I would have known when he was in the 2nd grade, really, the difference between having an advocate, not between the II program, between all the counselors, I would say bypass a couple years and immediately get a child advocate. Immediately go to the school with your advocate and keep your advocate very close. And go into the parenting classes, go into the counseling, and try to find a place where they have to have a diagnosis or have lived with somebody with a diagnosis. Learn everything you can, and I think you have a way better chance, of having your kid do well. I mean, like I said, my son, after a couple months, was reading Harry Potter, and he could not spell or read and or the. Not only that, they teach him life skills, and they get very close to the teachers and the counselors. And since there's not a lot of movement and change because they're there for year after year, they learn to trust them. So I really think, there's a lot to do. There's a lot going on with these kids. They're really smart usually. They're really intelligent. They're really nice, but they just really don't fit into the world. So the more you get into the world, the more you can help them and understand. We have an advocate now, family advocate, although my son is 22. She's amazing, and I don't really know what I would do without her. She just brainstorms with me, and we come up with new things and try to get him the right kind of help. Although, the mental health system is completely failing my son, as I put on the other video, but hopefully things will change, and hopefully, we've found a new route to go, so we'll see if it works. And I think for all you parents that are struggling with your kids in school, just don't wait. Get an advocate. Get an advocate, go to your IEP meeting with your advocate, get counseling for you and your child, and you will find that things will run a lot smoother. So I hope it helps a little bit. If I can be of any help, let me know. Thank you. Have a great day.